Welcome back to the channel The Coin Empire. Today we are diving into one of the most shocking and unbelievable stories in the world of coin collecting. A story that sounds almost impossible but has collectors searching through their change jars and old piggy banks with renewed excitement. Because we are talking about the 1980 quarter dollar that some believe could be worth an astonishing $109 million due to extraordinary mint errors, rare production mistakes, and unique possibilities that turn an ordinary 25-cent coin into a life-changing treasure. And before you think this is just another exaggerated rumor, stay with me as we explore how specific errors, striking anomalies, composition mismatches, die varieties, and rare minting circumstances could combine in a perfect storm to create a coin so rare and so mysterious that collectors and investors would compete fiercely to own it, driving its value into the realm of legendary status. Because in the fascinating world of numismatics, even a small detail can separate a common coin from a multi-million-dollar masterpiece. And the 1980 quarter is especially intriguing since it was produced at the Philadelphia Mint, indicated by the P Mint mark, during a time when the United States Mint was still refining quality control processes and occasionally releasing coins with dramatic and highly collectible errors. And while millions of 1,980 quarters were struck for circulation featuring the familiar portrait of George Washington on the obverse and the eagle design on the reverse, only a tiny fraction would ever exhibit the kind of rare minting mistakes that could elevate them into the stratosphere of value. One of the most talked about possibilities is a dramatic double die error where the design elements such as the date 1980, the word liberty, or the motto "I in God we trust" appear clearly doubled due to a misalignment during the die creation process. And when such doubling is bold and unmistakable, it captures intense interest because it reflects a flaw that occurred before the coin was even struck, making every coin produced from that die a rare variety. And if an extremely limited number escaped into circulation before the issue was corrected, the rarity multiplies and collectors begin to imagine the potential worth skyrocketing. Another extraordinary possibility involves an off-metal strike where a 1980 quarter was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, or even a different composition, such as being struck on a nickel planchet or a foreign coin blank, creating a mismatch in weight, size, and metallic content that instantly sets it apart. Such wrong planchet errors are highly prized because they represent a dramatic failure in the minting process. And if a unique example surfaced with pristine condition and full documentation, bidding wars among elite collectors could theoretically push the price into unbelievable territory. Then there are broad strike errors where the coin was struck outside of the retaining collar, causing it to expand outward without the normal reeded edge, creating a larger diameter and distorted appearance. And while many broad strikes exist in modest numbers, an unusually dramatic and perfectly preserved broad strike from 1980 with additional compounded errors could become a centerpiece coin in any advanced collection, especially if certified by top grading services in near flawless condition. And speaking of condition, the grade of a coin plays a massive role in determining value because a coin that survives in mint state condition with sharp details, original luster, and no signs of wear becomes exponentially more desirable. So imagine a 1980 quarter with a rare double die obverse combined with an off-center strike and preserved in gem mint state. The uniqueness of that combination could make it one of a kind. And in the numismatic world, unique often translates to priceless. Collectors are also fascinated by clipped planchet errors where a portion of the coin is missing due to a miscut blank, and when such an error is dramatic yet still shows full date and mint mark, it becomes even more collectible, especially if the clip displays the characteristic curved shape and metal flow lines that authenticate it as a genuine mint mistake rather than post-mint damage. And if only one or two examples of such a dramatic 1980 clipped planchet quarter were known, its scarcity would fuel intense competition among buyers. Another captivating possibility is a mule error where two mismatched dies are used together, for example pairing a quarter obverse with a design not intended for that denomination. Though such events are extremely rare, history has shown that mule coins can command extraordinary prices because they represent a near impossible minting accident. And if a 1980 quarter were ever discovered with such a mule pairing and confirmed authentic, the numismatic community would erupt with excitement. As collectors and investors scramble to secure a once-in-a-lifetime acquisition, We must also consider die cracks and cuts where pieces of the die break away and create raised blobs or lines on the finished coin, and while minor die cracks are relatively common, massive retained cuts that dramatically alter the appearance of the coin can become highly desirable, particularly when they create a visually striking and easily identifiable variety, and if a specific 1980p die developed a spectacular cut that was only used briefly before being retired, the surviving coins could become legendary among specialists. And the intrigue does not stop there, because errors involving rotated dies where the obverse and reverse are misaligned beyond acceptable tolerance can also attract attention, especially when the rotation is extreme, such as 90 degrees or even 180 degrees, creating a coin that looks dramatically different from standard issues. And if such a rotated die error were discovered on a 1980p quarter in flawless condition, collectors would eagerly compete to own such a conversation piece. Adding fuel to the idea of astronomical valuations, we also have to talk about transitional errors, those magical moments in minting history when the composition or design was being changed and a few coins were accidentally struck using outdated materials or dies. While the 1980 quarter was composed of a copper nickel clad over a pure copper core, any deviation from this standard, such as an experimental composition or an incorrect alloy mix, could create a coin of extreme rarity, and if documentation supported that only a single example existed, the market could respond with unprecedented enthusiasm, pushing theoretical values toward 9 figures. Beyond the technical errors, there is also the human factor of discovery and storytelling, because coins that surface under dramatic circumstances, such as being found in an old family collection untouched for decades, often capture media attention, and when publicity combines with rarity, the perceived value can escalate rapidly, as wealthy collectors see not just a coin but a piece of history, a symbol of chance and survival through time. And this emotional component often drives bidding beyond logical expectations, especially in private sales where two determined buyers refuse to back down. And while $109 million may sound unbelievable, remember that in other collectible markets, including art and rare artifacts, unique items have fetched staggering sums due to their singular nature and historical importance. So if a 1980p quarter embodied multiple dramatic mint errors, flawless preservation, verified authenticity, and a compelling narrative, it could become a numismatic icon, a coin whispered about in collector circles and showcased at major conventions as a marvel of minting mishap. And part of what fuels such valuations is the psychology of rarity, because humans are naturally drawn to what is scarce and unattainable, and when only one example of something exists, it transcends being a simple object and becomes a trophy, a symbol of exclusivity and prestige, especially among elite collectors who measure their success by owning pieces no one else can obtain, and the certification by respected grading companies would further legitimize the coin's status, as experts analyze its weight, metallic composition, strike characteristics, and die markers to confirm its authenticity beyond doubt. And once encapsulated and graded at the highest levels, such as mint state 68 or 69, its appeal would intensify. Investors might view it as a hedge against inflation or economic uncertainty, believing that tangible rare assets maintain value even when markets fluctuate, and this financial perspective adds another layer of demand, increasing the potential for record-breaking sales. It is also important to understand that the 1980 era was a transitional time economically. In the United States, with high inflation and evolving mint practices, and any anomaly from that period carries additional historical context, making it more than just metal but a reflection of its time, and collectors appreciate coins that tell a story about the era in which they were made, and when that story includes a dramatic minting error, it becomes even more captivating. Imagine the excitement of discovering such a coin in ordinary circulation, perhaps received as change at a store decades ago and stored away without a second thought, only to be examined closely years later under magnification, revealing unmistakable doubling, off-center strike, and a wrong planchet weight. Next, 1972 $quarter coin. Today we are diving into one of the most astonishing and mind-blowing stories in the world of coin collecting, a story that proves even an ordinary-looking piece of pocket change can turn into a treasure worth more than luxury mansions, private jets, and entire business empires combined. Because we are talking about the 1972 quarter dollar that some believe could reach an unbelievable value of $100 million due to rare mint errors, dramatic production mistakes, and extraordinary combinations of striking anomalies that elevate this simple 25-cent coin into the realm of legendary collectibles. And before you think that sounds impossible, you need to understand how rarity is formed, how minting errors occur, and how the smallest production flaw can transform an everyday circulating coin into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery that wealthy collectors would compete fiercely to own. The 1972 quarter features the familiar portrait of George Washington on the obverse and the heraldic eagle on the reverse, struck during a time when the United States Mint was still refining clad coinage production after the transition away from silver in 1965. And because the early clad years involved massive output and evolving quality control standards, the opportunity for unusual and dramatic mint errors was very real. Millions upon millions of 1972 quarters were struck for circulation at the Philadelphia and Denver mints, yet within those massive production numbers lies the tiny possibility that a handful of coins escaped with extraordinary mistakes that make them incredibly valuable today. One of the most famous and powerful types of error that could send the value of a 1972 quarter into the stratosphere is the double die error, which occurs not during the striking of the coin but during the creation of the die itself. When the design is impressed more than once at slightly different angles or offsets, resulting in visible doubling on elements such as the date 1972, the word liberty, the motto I in God we trust, or even Washington's profile, and when such doubling is bold, clear, and dramatic, it becomes highly collectible because it represents a mistake frozen permanently into the die and repeated on every coin struck from it. And if only a small batch of those coins entered circulation before the die was replaced, the surviving population would be extremely limited, increasing scarcity and driving collector demand. Another extraordinary possibility involves an off-metal strike where a 1972 quarter was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for another denomination such as a dime or a nickel, or even on a foreign coin blank, resulting in a coin with the wrong weight, thickness, and metallic composition. And such wrong planchet errors are among the most dramatic mint mistakes imaginable because they immediately stand out due to their size and color differences. And if a 1972 quarter were discovered struck on a silver planchet leftover from previous production or an experimental alloy, and if it were authenticated and proven unique, the numismatic world would erupt with excitement as collectors recognized the rarity and historical importance of such an anomaly. Off-center strikes also contribute to extreme value potential, occurring when the planchet is not properly aligned between the dies during striking, leaving part of the design missing and a blank crescent-shaped area visible on the coin. And while minor off-center errors are known, a dramatic 50% or greater off-center strike that still clearly displays the full date and mint mark would be far rarer and more desirable, especially if preserved in mint state condition without wear, because condition plays a massive role in determining value, and when rarity combines with pristine surfaces, sharp details, and brilliant luster, collectors are often willing to pay extraordinary premiums. Broad strike errors represent another fascinating category, happening when the coin is struck outside of the retaining collar, causing it to expand outward and lose its reeded edge, producing a wider, flatter appearance that distinguishes it instantly from standard issues. And if a 1972 quarter displayed a broad strike combined with additional errors such as doubling or a clipped planchet, the uniqueness of that combination could make it one of a kind. Clipped planchet errors themselves occur when the metal blank is improperly cut from the strip, leaving a curved or straight clip missing from the edge, and when such clips exhibit the characteristic metal flow lines and are clearly authentic mint errors rather than damage, they become highly collectible, particularly when dramatic in size yet still showing the complete date and design elements. And if only one or two dramatic 1972 clipped quarters were known in high grade, the competition among advanced collectors could be intense. Die cracks and cuts add yet another layer of intrigue, forming, when the die develops, fractures or breaks and leaves raised lines or blobs of metal on the coin's surface. And while minor die cracks are common in circulated coins, a massive retained cut that significantly alters the appearance of Washington's head, or the eagle on the reverse, could create a visually striking and easily identifiable variety. especially if it occurred late in the die's life and only a short run of coins were produced before the die was retired. Rotated die errors also fascinate collectors, occurring when the alignment between obverse and reverse is significantly off from the standard orientation, and if a 1972 quarter were found with a dramatic 90-degree or 180-degree rotation, especially combined with other minting anomalies, it would be considered an exceptional find worthy of major auction attention. And then there is the almost mythical mule error, where two dies not intended to be paired together are accidentally used in striking, creating a coin with mismatched designs. And while such events are extremely rare, history has shown that mule coins can command staggering prices because they represent a breakdown in mint procedures that is both unusual and historically significant. And if a 1972 quarter were ever authenticated as a mule pairing with a reverse from another denomination or an experimental design, it could easily become one of the most famous coins in modern numismatics. Transitional errors also offer the possibility of extraordinary value, particularly during periods when the mint was adjusting metal compositions, die designs, or production techniques. And since the early 1970s were still relatively close to the transition from silver to clad coinage, any accidental use of incorrect planchets or leftover materials could create a rare hybrid that captures intense collector interest, beyond the physical characteristics of the coin itself. The story of discovery can dramatically influence value, because when a coin surfaces from an old estate collection, bank vault, or roll of coins untouched for decades, it adds an element of mystery and authenticity that fuels excitement, and media coverage of such a find can attract global attention, bringing wealthy investors into the bidding process and driving prices far beyond traditional expectations. Certification by respected grading services further amplifies confidence, as experts verify authenticity, analyze metallic composition, confirm die markers, and assign an official grade, encapsulating the coin in a protective holder that assures potential buyers of its legitimacy. And when a rare era 1972 quarter receives an ultra-high grade such as MS68 or higher, the combination of rarity and condition can create a perfect storm for record-breaking valuations. Psychology also plays a powerful role, because collectors are often motivated not only by investment potential but by the desire to own something unique, something that no one else in the world possesses. And when a coin is believed to be one of a kind, it transcends being currency and becomes a trophy, a symbol of exclusivity and achievement. And in high-level auctions where two determined bidders refuse to back down, prices can escalate into astonishing territory. The global expansion of online auctions and international coin shows has also broadened the pool of potential buyers, meaning that a legendary 1972 quarter error could attract interest from collectors across continents, each recognizing its rarity and historical significance. And as wealth continues to grow worldwide, the market for trophy collectibles has expanded dramatically, making nine-figure valuations not entirely unimaginable under the right circumstances. Imagine discovering such a coin in your own possession, perhaps inherited from a relative who saved rolls of quarters decades ago. And upon close inspection under magnification you notice bold doubling on the date, an unusual weight when placed on a scale, a missing clad layer revealing a copper core, and a rotated reverse that defies standard alignment. That moment would be unforgettable, a realization that a simple quarter could hold life-changing value. And while not every 1972 quarter is worth more than face value, the possibility that a rare and extraordinary specimen exists keeps collectors searching through their change jars and coin albums with hope and determination. Next, 1997 quarter dollar coin. Today we are uncovering one of the most mind-blowing and unbelievable stories in modern coin collecting history, a story that turns an ordinary pocket change coin into a potential fortune beyond imagination. Because we are talking about the 1997 quarter dollar that some collectors believe could reach an astonishing value of $105 million due to rare mint errors, extraordinary production mistakes, and once-in-a-lifetime combinations of striking anomalies that transform a simple 25-cent piece into a legendary treasure. And before you dismiss this as impossible, you need to understand how the coin market works, how rarity is created, and how a perfect storm of minting mishaps can elevate a modern circulating coin into the realm of priceless collectibles. because in the world of numismatics it only takes one dramatic error, preserved in exceptional condition and verified by experts, to send shockwaves through the collecting community and ignite bidding wars among elite buyers. The 1997 P quarter was struck at the Philadelphia Mint as part of the long-running Washington Quarter series featuring the iconic portrait of George Washington on the obverse and the heraldic eagle on the reverse. And while hundreds of millions were produced for everyday commerce, only a microscopic fraction could possess the kind of errors that make collectors stop in their tracks. One of the most powerful possibilities is a dramatic doubled die error created during the die manufacturing process when the design was impressed into the die more than once at slightly different angles, causing noticeable doubling in the lettering, date, or even Washington's profile. And when this doubling is bold and easily visible without magnification, it becomes highly sought after, especially if very few examples escaped into circulation before the die was corrected. Because such pre-production mistakes are permanently embedded into the coin's design and cannot be replicated later, making each genuine example part of a tiny population that collectors compete fiercely to own. Another remarkable possibility is an off-metal strike where a 1997 P quarter was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for another denomination such as a nickel or even a foreign coin blank, resulting in a coin with unusual weight, thickness, or metallic composition. And wrong planchet errors are among the most exciting discoveries in coin collecting because they represent a dramatic breakdown in the mint's quality control, and if only one confirmed specimen existed in pristine condition it could command a price that defies expectations. Then there are off-center strikes where the coin design is not properly aligned with the planchet during striking, leaving part of the design missing and a blank crescent visible on the opposite side, and while minor off-center strikes are somewhat common, a major off-center 1997 P quarter that still clearly shows the full date and mint mark would be significantly rarer, especially if it also displayed other simultaneous errors such as doubling or a broad strike, creating a compound error that multiplies its uniqueness, and collectors often pay exponential premiums for coins that combine multiple minting mistakes because the probability of such combinations occurring is extremely low, adding to the mystique and value of the piece. We also have to consider missing clad layer errors where one of the outer nickel layers of the clad composition separates or was never properly bonded, exposing the copper core beneath and giving the coin a distinctive appearance and reduced weight. And if such an error were dramatic and visually striking on a 1997 P quarter in mint state condition, it would instantly draw attention from specialists, particularly if certified and encapsulated by a respected grading authority. Because authentication is critical when dealing with coins that could potentially reach into the millions, die cracks and cuds represent another category of fascinating mint mistakes, occurring when a portion of the die fractures or breaks away and leaves raised irregular shapes on the coin's surface. And while small cracks may be common, a massive retained cud that dramatically alters the design and appears only on a short run of coins before the die was retired can become a legendary variety, especially if documentation confirms its scarcity. Rotated die errors are also compelling, where the alignment between obverse and reverse is significantly off from the standard orientation, and if a 1997 P quarter were discovered with a dramatic rotation of 90 or even 180 degrees combined with high-grade preservation, it would be considered an extraordinary find, and the rarer the rotation and the sharper the strike, the more collectors would view it as a trophy coin worthy of record-breaking bids. Another thrilling possibility involves a mule error, an event so rare that it borders on unbelievable, where two dies not intended to be paired together are accidentally used in striking, and though extremely uncommon, mule coins have achieved incredible notoriety in numismatic history, and if a 1997 P quarter were ever authenticated as a mule pairing with a mismatched reverse or experimental die, the collecting world would erupt with excitement. Because such an anomaly would represent a unique artifact of minting history unlikely ever to be duplicated, transitional errors also spark immense interest, particularly when changes in design or production processes overlap and create unintended hybrids. And while 1997 was just before the introduction of the state quarter program, any experimental dies or test strikes that inadvertently entered circulation could become highly coveted, especially if only one or two examples were known to exist. Beyond the physical errors themselves, there is the factor of condition rarity, because even common coins can become extraordinarily valuable if preserved in near perfect mint state grades such as MS68 or MS69, and when a rare error is combined with near flawless surfaces, sharp details, and brilliant luster, its desirability increases exponentially, as collectors recognize that the likelihood of another example surviving in such condition is incredibly small, and when scarcity meets perfection, the market often responds with astonishing price levels. Psychology also plays a significant role in determining extreme valuations, because wealthy collectors are often motivated by prestige and exclusivity, desiring to own items that no one else possesses, and when a coin is believed to be unique or one of a handful known, it becomes more than currency or metal, it becomes a symbol of achievement and status, driving competitive bidding that can escalate far beyond traditional price guides. Media coverage and viral attention can further amplify this effect. As stories of rare coins discovered in ordinary change capture public imagination and draw new participants into the hobby, increasing demand and raising awareness of specific varieties, and if a 1997 P quarter with unprecedented errors were publicized widely, attracting global attention, the resulting competition among international buyers could push its theoretical value into extraordinary territory. The role of professional grading services cannot be overstated in this scenario, because authentication and certification provide confidence to buyers that the coin is genuine and accurately described, and when a coin is sealed in a tamper-evident holder with a high grade and detailed attribution of its errors, it becomes more liquid and more attractive to high-end investors who may be willing to pay record sums for verified rarity. It is also important to remember that the United States Mint produces coins in enormous quantities. And with such high volume, even a tiny fraction of errors can amount to thousands of pieces. But when we narrow our focus to dramatic, visually obvious, and well-preserved errors, the numbers shrink dramatically, and if only a single 1997 P quarter combined a wrong planchet strike, bold double-dyed verse, significant off-center alignment, and pristine mint state preservation, the statistical improbability of such a convergence would make it a once-in-a-generation discovery. And the numismatic community thrives on such discoveries because they challenge assumptions about what is possible and remind collectors that treasures can still be found. Investors often view ultra-rare coins as tangible assets that can appreciate over time, particularly when they are unique, or nearly so. And as global wealth increases and more individuals seek alternative investments beyond stocks and real estate, the market for trophy collectibles continues to expand, creating an environment where a coin with extraordinary attributes could theoretically command nine-figure valuations if the right circumstances align. The 1997 P quarter's place in history just before the major design shift of the state quarters program adds another layer of context, representing the end of a long era of Washington quarter production before a new chapter began, and collectors often cherish coins that symbolize transitions, especially when coupled with dramatic minting anomalies. Imagine the excitement of discovering such a coin in a roll obtained from a bank decades ago, overlooked for years until examined under magnification, revealing unmistakable doubling, unusual weight, exposed copper core, and misaligned dies. Last 1987 P quarter dollar coin. Today we are exploring one of the most unbelievable and exciting stories in modern coin collecting, a story that turns an ordinary-looking piece of pocket change into a potential fortune worth $98 million. And we are talking about the 1987 P quarter dollar. A coin that millions of people have handled without a second thought, yet under the right circumstances and with the right combination of mint errors and production mistakes could become one of the most valuable coins ever discovered. And before anyone says that sounds impossible, you have to understand how the coin market truly works, because value in numismatics is built on rarity, demand, condition, authentication, historical importance, and sometimes the sheer shock factor of a discovery that no one expected. And when all of those elements align in one single coin, the results can be absolutely staggering. The 1987 P quarter was struck at the Philadelphia Mint and carries the P Mint mark, featuring the classic portrait of George Washington on the obverse and the eagle design on the reverse. And while it was produced in massive numbers for circulation during the late 1980s, a period of high volume coinage and rapid production, that same large scale manufacturing environment also creates opportunities for errors to slip through, because even with strict quality control, no minting system is perfect. And sometimes small mechanical misalignments or die preparation mistakes can create coins that are dramatically different from their standard counterparts. One of the most powerful types of mint error that could push a 1987 p quarter into legendary status is a double die error, which happens during the creation of the die when the hub impresses the design onto the die more than once at slightly different positions, causing noticeable doubling in the date 1987, the word liberty, the phrase "I in God we trust," or even in the details of Washington's hair and profile. And when this doubling is strong and clearly visible without magnification, it becomes extremely desirable because it represents a flaw permanently embedded into the die itself, meaning every coin struck from that die carries the same distinctive characteristics. And if that die was used only briefly before being discovered and replaced, the number of surviving examples could be incredibly small, driving intense demand among collectors who specialize in die varieties. Another dramatic possibility involves an off-metal strike, where a 1987 p quarter was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for another denomination such as a dime or nickel, or even on a foreign coin blank, resulting in a coin that is either too small, too light, too heavy, or made of the wrong metal composition. And wrong planchet errors are among the most eye-catching and valuable mint mistakes because they immediately stand out. And if a 1987 p quarter were discovered struck on an experimental alloy or a leftover silver planchet from an earlier era, authenticated and proven unique, it could instantly become one of the most talked about coins in existence. Then there are off-center strikes, where the planchet is improperly positioned during striking, leaving part of the design missing and creating a blank crescent-shaped area on the coin. And while minor off-center errors may carry modest premiums, a dramatic 50% or greater off-center 1987 p quarter that still clearly shows the full date and mint mark would be far rarer and more desirable, especially if preserved in mint state condition with no wear. Because condition multiplies rarity in powerful ways, broad strike errors also offer incredible potential value, occurring when the coin is struck outside of the retaining collar and expands outward without forming the standard reeded edge, creating a wider and thinner appearance that is immediately noticeable. And if such a broad strike were combined with doubling, a clipped planchet, or a rotated die alignment, the uniqueness of that combination could make it virtually one of a kind. Clipped planchet errors themselves occur when the metal strip used to punch blanks overlaps improperly, leaving a curved or straight missing section on the finished coin. And when these clips display authentic metal flow lines and are not post-mint damage, they are highly collectible, particularly when large and dramatic yet still showing the complete date. Die cracks and cuds represent another fascinating class of errors, forming when the die develops fractures or pieces break away, leaving raised irregular shapes on the coin's surface. And while small die cracks are common in circulated coins, a massive retained cud that covers a significant portion of Washington's head or the eagle's wings could create a visually stunning and easily identifiable variety that collectors would eagerly seek out. Rotated die errors add yet another layer of intrigue, happening when the obverse and reverse are misaligned beyond the standard orientation, and a dramatic 90-degree or even 180-degree rotation on a 1987 p quarter in pristine condition would instantly draw attention from specialists and auction houses alike. Because such errors are relatively rare and visually striking, one of the most extraordinary possibilities is the mule error, an event so rare that it borders on unbelievable, where two dies not intended to be paired together are used in striking, creating a coin with mismatched designs. And while such occurrences are extremely uncommon, history has shown that mule coins can command enormous prices due to their uniqueness and the breakdown in mint procedures they represent. And if a 1987 p quarter were ever authenticated as a mule with a reverse from a different denomination or an experimental die, the numismatic world would be electrified. Transitional errors are also worth considering, especially during times when the mint was updating equipment, refining alloys, or experimenting with design modifications, and any accidental overlap of old and new processes could produce a rare hybrid coin that becomes a centerpiece in advanced collections. Beyond the technical aspects of minting mistakes, the condition of the coin plays a monumental role in determining its ultimate value, because a rare error in circulated condition might be worth thousands. But the same error preserved in near-perfect mint states such as MS-68 or MS-69 could be worth exponentially more, as collectors recognize the extreme unlikelihood of such preservation, and when a coin combines dramatic error characteristics with flawless surfaces, sharp strike details, and brilliant original luster, it becomes the kind of trophy piece that elite collectors dream about owning. Psychology also drives extreme valuations, because collectors are often motivated by exclusivity and prestige, wanting to own something that no one else can claim, and when a coin is believed to be unique, or one of only a handful known to exist, it transcends being a simple piece of currency and becomes a symbol of status and achievement. And in high-end auctions where wealthy bidders compete intensely, prices can escalate far beyond traditional estimates. Media coverage can further amplify this effect, as stories of rare coins discovered in ordinary change capture public imagination and bring global attention to a specific variety. And when international buyers enter the bidding arena, the competition increases dramatically, pushing final sale prices into extraordinary territory. Certification by respected grading services is critical in these scenarios, as experts analyze the coin's weight, metallic composition, die markers, and strike characteristics to confirm authenticity. And once encapsulated within official grade and attribution of its errors, the coin becomes more attractive to serious investors who demand verification before committing large sums of money. The late 1980s were a period of massive coin production in the United States, and with such volume even a tiny fraction of dramatic errors could slip through. Yet when we narrow our focus to the most visually striking, well-preserved, and well-documented examples, the numbers shrink dramatically, and if only a single 1987 P-quarter combined multiple extraordinary mint mistakes in pristine condition, its statistical improbability would make it legendary. Investors sometimes view ultra-rare coins as tangible stores of wealth, particularly those with unique characteristics, and as global wealth expands and more individuals seek alternative investments outside traditional markets, the demand for one-of-a-kind collectibles continues to grow, making even a 9-figure valuation theoretically possible under the right circumstances. Imagine discovering such a coin tucked away in an old collection, perhaps saved in a jar for decades without anyone noticing its unusual features, and upon careful examination you see bold doubling on the date, an unusual weight that does not match standard specifications, a rotated reverse, and a missing clad layer revealing the copper core beneath. That moment would be life-changing, a realization that a simple quarter could hold unimaginable value, and while not every 1987 P-quarter is worth more than face value, the possibility that a rare and extraordinary specimen exists keeps collectors searching and studying their coins with renewed passion, because numismatics is built on curiosity, patience,